Hey everyone, and welcome to show number 27 of Experience This. I'm Bruce Rosard. I'm one of the co-founders of Arrival and really enjoying this podcast and vodcast that I'm doing with my co-hosts. Unfortunately, Christian is not with us, but Lori is. Lori, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, nice to be here. I'm Lori Timoney and I'm the Vice President of Partnerships for Virgin Experience Gifts. Speaking of experiences, happy to be here today to speak with Claus and learn a little bit more about extraordinary experiences.
So our special guest today, Claus Raasted, is the director of the College of Extraordinary Experiences, and it's really quite an extraordinary thing that you've put together there, Claus. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the College of the Extraordinary Experiences?
Thanks for that, Bruce, and thank you, Lori. So the quick intro is that the college is a networking event with learning opportunities, as opposed to a lot of events that are learning events with network opportunities. And that doesn't really do it justice, because what it really is 5 intense, crazy days in a 13th century castle in Poland, where people from all sorts of backgrounds come together. Different nationalities, different industries, different age groups, different social groups, different cultures, all coming together to discuss and learn under the whole kind of the umbrella of experience design. So whether people are lawyers or shoemakers or travel agents, it doesn't matter, because they're here to talk about experience design and share with each other. That's the simple version.
What do you mean when you say experience design? Pull that in a little bit, because that's a pretty broad topic.
So let's take this glass here, right? It's a little bit hard because of my green screen, but there's a glass here with a little bit of water in. If you look at a glass and you are a product designer, then you will look at things like what materials are it made of, how easy is it to produce, how easy is it to stack, how can we make it more aesthetic, how can it fulfill its function. If you're a service designer, you will look at how big is the glass, what are the functions when you use it for serving. Can it have hot coffee in it? If it's a mug meant for hot coffee and it melts at 60 degrees Celsius, then it's a bad glass for that from a service design perspective. If you look at it from a behavior design perspective, then instead you're thinking, is it easy to grip? Is it easy to place? What affordances does it give? What sort of behavior does it kind of make you do easily? Now, if you're looking at things from an experience design perspective, you're looking at the experience itself. You're looking at how is the thing to sit in? How is the room to be in? What does the lighting look like? What's the music? What's the spaces, the sounds? What are the interactions between the people? So simply put, it's a design discipline with a lot of overlap with other design disciplines. And as experience designers, we of course claim that everything is, at the end of the day, a designed experience. So our purview is the whole world. Now, the others will say roughly the same, but they'll come at it from a different angle.
Well, what do you mean? Like, who are these others that are coming at this from a different angle?
Service designers, behavior designers, culture designers, product designers, UX designers, anybody who works with designing something, whether it is software or customer success, or it is physical products, it's services, or in our case, it's experiences.
One question before we go further beyond this, Lori, and you get to come and chime in. Take your experience design that you're talking about and relate it to a tour that one of our listeners, thinks about every day, and with their experiences. So let's call it a food tour.
Yes.
So I am designing a food tour in Barcelona. How do you look at that from your experience design perspective?
So if I'm looking at a food tour in Barcelona, then I'm looking holistically at the experience as a whole. I'm not just looking at the logistics. How do we get around? How does safety work? How do people get fed? How do they go to the bathroom? That sort of thing. That's more a service design thing. If you're looking at from an experience design perspective, you're looking at the entire experience. You're looking at who do you meet on the way? How do you meet each other? Who's guiding this? What are the interactions in the group? Basically, what sort of experience do you want to give people? A good question is, if you're selling somebody a product, you ask, what product should they leave with from your supermarket, right? If we're selling them an experience like a Barcelona food tour, we're asking, what do we want them to leave with? What sort of story, what sort of emotion, and then design for that.
Cool. Awesome. So listen, I would love to show a quick teaser that you've developed for the College of the Extraordinary Experiences and give everyone a little taste of what it is you've created there. So let's show that now.
To me, the college is, I want to believe that it is kind of a Bauhaus for the age of experience.
I would say it's almost like a different universe in its own, but rather maybe a cosmos that we would like to achieve in real life, like just outside these walls. I would say the college is people from around the world coming together that are all having a curiosity about experience design.
And at the college, I feel that we are pushing the boundaries, not only of how to design experiences, but why we are designing experiences, and then the deeper layer of what is it that we're trying to achieve collectively.
Unusually open in the heart and open in the mind. And so more than anything else, I will remember the relationships that I made here, and the friendships that I've made here, and the speed of friending. How quickly conversations become deep and intimate and vulnerable and valuable.
There's a richness here in experience, which is continuous. It's a continuous flow for you to get lost in. So of course, like there are classes, which definitely exceeded my expectations because they were so different, but also so thoughtfully designed.
I found myself in a state almost like a trance, with childlike wonder, wandering from room to room, from session to session. It was like a never-ending Alice in Wonderland adventure where you'd walk into a room and it would take you up into a secret castle terrace, and then you found yourself in the prince's chamber with world-class musicians. That it just felt like I was constantly being transported, and that the time-space continuum collapsed.
So Klaus, after seeing that video, I'm sure people have a lot of questions. It's a very unusual, it's not your typical experience, shall we say. So I want to really kind of get back to the beginning here. Number one, what made you decide to open up the College of Extraordinary Experiences? What did you see a need that had to be fulfilled, or what is it that drove you to do that?
So in 2016, 7 years ago, my co-founder, Paul Boulench, and I, we were on a flight back from Abu Dhabi to Prague in Europe, where we had been location scouting in Abu Dhabi. We were on a flight back and we were discussing how to take over the world, as people who just met each other do. This was our first big project together. So of course we talked more about how else can we work together. Paul comes from the world of tourism and has written a book on gamification in tourism and is a sought after speaker in that realm. At least he was in 2016. And we asked, what if we took and changed tourism conferences? Because he said tourism conferences, as many professional conferences, tend to be rather stale. They tend to have good locations, excellent food, okay to good speakers, but usually people go home with business cards, some new ideas, maybe a little bit of inspiration, and that's that. Now, this is the norm. This is not to say that all conferences are like that, but many professional conferences are like that. They're following a format that is tried and tested, but not necessarily optimal. And Paul and I talked about, what if we made a different sort of conference? What if we made a conference focused on experiences? We started with tourism, and then we developed it further into experiences in general. And that was supposed to be an experience in itself. That was the starting point. And then we asked ourselves two questions. One was, where does radical innovation come from? And the second was, why don't we have more of it? So the first question to answer that is that innovation happens when we gather people who have similar mindsets and we put them together, and then we get incremental innovation. We get improvements. People go to a conference full of doctors or lawyers and they meet each other and they exchange pleasantries, but also tips on their work. really, really good, really, really nice. We all know those. But it's usually incremental innovation. Now, if you want the radical stuff, then you need to put together people who are different. Put the doctors together with the lawyers, with the basketball players and the bricklayers. So that was our first kind of finding, which didn't take long because most of us know that if you want radical change, you need to get diversity in the room, diversity of experience, diversity of background, diversity of thought. So the second question was, why doesn't it happen more often? If we all know this, why don't we do it more? And turns out we're all human. So when we meet new people, we tend to look at them and we tend to think, too corporate, too artsy, too young, too old, too West Coast, too East Coast, too wrong somehow, if they're not like us. And while we can still enjoy their company, we can still have a good time with them, the moment they say something provocative or something offensive even, then we shut down. Then we tend to think, okay, this person has nothing to add, unless there's trust. Because if there's trust, then that, instead of closing down, that shutdown mechanism turns to curiosity. And then we say, what you just said is completely opposite my worldview, or I don't think that's even possible. To me, that sounds stupid. Why do you say that?
Yeah.
What makes you think that's a good idea? But it requires trust. So we realize.
So you're
yes,
you're putting that, you're presenting that opportunity to learn how to trust the folks around you. What I thought was also very interesting is this idea of, sort of crowdsource content where you're not necessarily faced with an agenda specifically. It sounds like you do some of that. I mean, I'm interested to learn a little bit more about that because, you as a person that looks at conferences and makes a decision about, am I going to spend money on this? My company might be paying for it. They might not be paying for it. But if they're paying for it, then you have to justify it somehow, right? So what's the agenda? What am I going to get out of this? But from what I understand in looking at some of the media around your college is that you don't necessarily have a set agenda in all cases. You really try to bring the group together to see kind of, okay, what happens next? And so that I thought was really interesting. And I guess that people have to trust you, right? They have to trust you in order to spend that kind of money when you don't really tell them exactly what they're going to learn.
In fact, we tell them we don't know what they're going to learn. And the reason is simple. If I come in as a keynote speaker, and I do quite a bit of speaking, and there's 100 people in the audience, some of them are going to know what I have to say already, and they're going to say, okay, we knew that, or that's good to get that remembered. Some will say, wow, that's new, and that's just what I needed. And others will say, I don't believe this guy. And some will just be mildly to medium amused. Where if I get to sit down with somebody, if I get to sit down with one of those 100 participants, it doesn't matter who that person is, we will probably have a fruitful conversation. We'll both learn something. But you can't really do that with the classic speaker setup where you pay somebody to be on stage and the rest pay to hear them. That doesn't really create the deep connections. It's a one-way circus that, in my mind, should have died when YouTube came in, especially for the people who are just giving the same talk they're giving on YouTube. So what it means is that the real value, and this is not a secret at conferences and events, is the people you meet there. Yes, there may be good speakers, they may be great, but the real value almost always is the conversations people have aside from the formal program. We said, what about making that into the core? So everything we do at the college is about connecting people. All the classes we have, all our professors, as we call them, who teach very, very varied things and in interactive ways, all of that is to give people those shared experiences. So when they do sit down, there is that trust. Then they know these people. Somebody said it nicely at the last college, said, I spent 5 days at a professional conference and I've never talked so little about work with people as I did here, but I feel that now I'm connected to them. So now it's easy to go home and do projects together.
Yeah, that's
let me
interesting.
jump in on this, if I could, Lori, for a quick second, because
Sure.
Obviously, as someone who produces conferences, I'm listening intently, and I think we do a really good job at a lot of what you're talking about, and still have a lot to learn and that we can improve on. Firstly, we don't have paid speakers who come on, get on the big stage, and leave. We have speakers from the industry who then will go out and meet with people and have that one-on-one experience that you're talking about. But here's the part.
But how many groups? Let me challenge that. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm going to get contrary. Let me challenge that. How many speakers at an event with how many attendees?
So Orlando coming up, we'll have about 1,100 attendees, and we'll have about 80 speakers. Now that's a big number. We have a lot of breakout sessions. So we have, if you look at our theater, you know, the people that are getting up in front of a general session, our speaker count is probably closer to 20 or less. The reason we have so many speakers is because of all the breakout sessions, which are more what we call workshops, or the kind of the tactical learning sessions, if you will. So that's my answer.
I'm talking one-to-one. When I'm talking about
no, the one-to-one is then in between the sessions, right? All the networking.
I'm going to press this point because to me this is at the core of it. Is if you have 80 speakers and 1,100 participants, then obviously those 80 speakers cannot spend a lot of one-on-one.
The ratio. Okay, you're talking about the ratio.
Exactly, so the ratio. Because even if they're amazing people, which they probably are, even if they deliver amazing stuff and they're still there, they don't just come in and move. It's still the ratio is there, right? Where if you and I,
you're right, and that's right. I want to get to that next point. Just one really quick example. So there's a CEO of one of the OTAs, one of the more prominent people in the industry, did a keynote or an interview on stage, and I was able at the bar that same night to talk to him, hang out, and probably 25 different people interrupted my conversation with him, unfortunately, but came and said hello and hung out and had an actual real conversation just at the bar that night, because he's not like some famous guy that doesn't come to the bar and hang out as part of the industry. So what is the ratio? How many people come to the College of Extraordinary Experiences?
So the college has 100 people, 100 participants, a little bit about 100, and about 50 backstage.
Okay, but 100 people pay you to come to the event.
Yes.
And do they all stay in the castle?
Everybody stays in the castle for 5 days.
So that's for 5 days. So that is really your magic. Is it's only 100 people.
It's only 100 people.
Some are speakers or educators, but really everyone kind of is of those 100.
Exactly.
And they're staying there for 5 nights. So the connection is crazy.
The connection is crazy, and add to that we divide people into houses. So not only are there 100 people, but everybody is sorted into a house, Harry Potter style, with like 16 to 18 people led by a couple of experienced facilitators. So you have the big 100-person group, and then that's sorted into a 16 to 18-person group that you spend a lot of time with during those 5 days. And to further build on that, the classes, the kind of the workshop slots, as we could call them, even if they're terrible, that's okay, because the classes are not the point. If somebody learns something, that's beautiful, and the people we have running these things are really good, but the main objective of the classes is to give people connection to build on. So the classes are not something people know they're looking for. They are things where they go, I didn't even know that was a thing, but we did it together. So last time they went wilderness tracking, they designed their own funerals. We had a 16th generation samurai teaching Zen and sword play, that sort of thing. So the classes are very much from very different, very experiential perspectives. They're not there to teach, they're there to bond. And if they then teach, that's a bonus.
That's very cool. So I know that have lots of stuff going on there. There's not necessarily an agenda. People are, it sounds like, as you said, one of the big benefits is just the people they're meeting, their connections, they how they use those as they move into their lives. But if you had to say, you know, kind of the top 3 takeaways, benefits, whatever you want to call it,
sure,
that people are going to walk away with from this type of a program, what are they?
So first, and you touched upon it a little bit, Lori, is we have a lot of crowdsourced content. So one thing is we have these professors who are skilled individuals invited to run some classes so people can do something interesting together. But apart from that, most of every evening and the whole of day 4 is crowdsourced. So that means anyone and anyone can bring a workshop or a performance or a discussion circle or whatever it is they want. so that we have people bringing their own things. And that is chaotic and crazy, because somebody will be doing a calligraphy class and somebody will be teaching pole dancing, somebody will be discussing business models in different areas of the castle. So there's a lot of self-selection. Imagine a program track where every single person at the event was both a contributor and a participant. That's where so that's the first thing, is people learn very different things and meet very different people. But if I had to give 3 takeaways, one is getting to know people first and then doing business with them later, rather than trying to do business with them first and getting to know them later. They're 2 different models. Both have advantages, but we find this one works really, really well for connecting people from different industries. And number 2 is, somebody described it as, oh, you go there and you meet people from different worlds, and now you have guides in these different worlds. So if Bruce goes and meets somebody who works in the Dutch escape room industry, then whatever later in life he needs somebody from the escape room industry, he doesn't have to Google and find random people. He can just call Victor. And if I need somebody who works with regenerative culture in the US, then I call Bryant. If I want somebody who's a dance instructor in Japan, then I call Zen, etc. So getting access to different worlds and different communities, that's the second takeaway. And the third is, not everyone, but most people come home with new thoughts on themselves. We hear a lot of people saying, I didn't know what to expect. I knew I was going to learn stuff and meet people, but I didn't realize how much of a self-development thing this was. And I didn't realize how important that was for my business.
Right.
As a third takeaway, not for everyone, but for many.
Yeah. Well, and just, to your first point, I mean, I really feel like the travel industry is, and I think this is probably the case with many industries, but definitely the travel industry is all about relationships. Like 1,000%. And that's one of the things that, Bruce talked a little bit about at the Arrival conferences. There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of that back and forth and have a beer together and do whatever, right? And it absolutely does set you up to really do business well. But kind of moving beyond the college, I think it's interesting because when I read a little bit about your history, I know that you were involved in kind of the live role playing. That was a part of what you were very much involved in. And I sort of looked at that and said, well, that's been around a long time, actually, right? I mean, I think about things like the Renaissance Fair and some of those types of things that have been around for a very long time. And so to some degree, I feel like the experiences industry has really been around a long time. But in some cases, we're putting names to things now that we maybe didn't before, as well as we see an evolution in it. And I wonder, from somebody that is engaged with all of these types of people, from different parts of the industry, people that are involved in many different types of experience design, how do you see the future of the experiences industry moving? Like, what do you see what's the next thing coming that maybe only somebody in your shoes might know about because you have access to all of these, wild conversations and workshops and people?
It's a lovely question. And sadly, the first answer I will give is a little bit dystopian. So bear with me for a moment. As it grows, it will splinter. Right now, we have the World Experience Organization, which was formed during the pandemic, which is an excellent organization, kind of lobbying for better definitions and more terms and more frameworks and connecting people from all over the globe. And it's not that big, but it exists now. It didn't 10 years ago. And what happens with any sort of movement or industry or field is, as it grows, it splinters. And I've seen this in the live action role play field. I see it in the experience design field, that as things become bigger, we become more specialized, and definitions are political. So the world is full of people like me who will say, I have defined what my field is, and you are part of it. And then these people say, but we didn't ask to be part of your field. We have our own thing. And we say, no, you're part of our thing. And then resistance comes. So when somebody talks about the travel industry. Is that part of the experience industry? Of course it is. Are concerts? Yes. Are theme parks? Yes. But that doesn't mean that the people who actually do theme parks or do travel or do concerts necessarily know anything about these so-called experience economy players. You can have been designing rock concerts for 20 years and never heard of Joe Pine or Jim Gilmore. You can have been in the travel industry for 50 years and have no idea of the 5-step progression model for economic value. And you can still do a wonderful job. And then along come these people saying, oh, but we've got terms and frameworks and connections. And some people say, I love it. I didn't know there was a tribe. I feel home now. And others say, whoa, we've got our own thing going on. We don't want to be part of your thing. So there's a lot of turf war in definitions. Bruce touched upon it nicely when he talked about transformational travel. That's somebody trying to carve out a niche. Is that part of travel? Is it part of the transformation industry? Is it part of wellness? Is it part of culture? Where do these things fit? A lot of that is important because it matters to the people involved. It matters to the decisions made by both influential players, and it matters because that's where the money and the impact goes. And
yeah, that's very interesting to me because we actually had a conversation. We did a show last week and we talked a lot about what the future of experiences might be. And we specifically talked about the fact that the experience industry is starting to encompass things that we never thought about necessarily, right? We just mentioned concerts, sporting events. All of these things are now falling under the umbrella to some degree of the experiences industry, but we don't know whether or not the sport, we know the sporting industry is starting to come into the fold, but is the music industry coming into the fold? You know, is the ticketing, the theater? So exactly that. It's going to be interesting to see how that progresses. And Bruce, you'll probably play a big role in that. I think Arrival will, just in terms of bringing in you know, different forms of experiences.
Hey, it's Marika from the Von Mack Agency here with your tourism marketing half minute. Raise your hand if you've ever heard the fallacy that tourism is recession proof. Yep, that's definitely not true. So in today's economy, it might be a good time to start thinking about scarcity marketing. This is a technique that focuses on creating a sense of urgency and excitement all around your product. And studies have shown that customers are 30% more likely to purchase something when they believe it'll sell out. So try offering limited time packages, exclusive discounts, or even something VIP, but make sure to A/B test your results.
Yeah, I mean, it really is super interesting. I think we're at some tipping points right now, right? Some of it is just words like transformational travel, but some of it is transformational travel actually going to enter into what we at Arrival call the in-destination experiences, right? Which is a segment of travel, of tours, activities, attractions, and now events. And it's the third largest sector of travel, which is the second largest industry in the world. So whatever we decide to call these things is probably less important than how do they impact our customers and everyone else's customers that are part of our community and part of who you guys are talking to every day. Let's talk experiences specifically, not transformational travel. Maybe we'll get back to that. I don't know if we'll have time for that on this call. We had a guest at show 24, Michael Zeisser, who invests in the experiences industry specifically. He's a major investor in a number of companies, including companies that are not in travel. So if anyone's interested in what he was talking about with the experiences industry, I would go back to our show number 24 and listen to what Michael had to say, because he listed a lot of things that are not part of travel, but he still considers the experiences industry. That was super interesting. Claus, you mentioned the project, or I would say the model that Pine and Gilmore put together, the 5-step model, that I do think is very relevant to this discussion and to experiences in general in travel and tourism, even though I don't know if they wrote it for travel and tourism. Can you just give us a quick summary, kind of give us the cliff notes of the 5-step
We'll give
model?
the lightning version so people can look it up if they want to later. that Joe Pine, who's one of the founders of the College of Extraordinary Experiences and one of the pioneers of the whole experience economy thing, back in '98 wrote a book with his partner Jim Gilmore. And they said there are 5 kind of phases of human economic value progression. So to begin with, we had the commodities economy. Most money and most power and most influence of the economy was in resources, right? Iron ore or fish or wheat, for that matter, things we took out of the earth. Then comes the Industrial Revolution, and the main economic drivers move to products, move to things that we take these things and then we make them into products. It's no longer a banana, it's now banana ice cream or banana liqueur or a banana shampoo or banana something. You take the commodity and then you customize it and it becomes worth much, much more. The iron becomes the nail. Then after that, after the Second World War, we moved once again, and most of the value started being the services economy, that you're delivering these things. You're not selling the coffee beans. You're also not selling the coffee. You're selling the coffee delivered to you at a corner stand, or you're selling somebody delivering a service, somebody saving you time or saving you effort. And that's where a lot of the money began to be. And if we look at economies today, advanced economies were the ones that went from industrial factory economies into service economies. Any advanced economy today does that. They still have manufacturing, yes, but the main power in their economies is services. Now, Pine and Gilmore's point was in the late 90s, we were beginning to see a tip towards experiences as an economic driver. So people selling experiences to each other, selling concerts, selling coaching, selling festivals, selling travel, selling football games, selling museums, but selling the experience. And they said most of the economic value started to be in that. And suddenly that's even more. That's not the corner store with the coffee. That's the restaurant. That's the mocharia where they do wine, where they do coffee tastings. It's the experience you're selling. It's not the things in it. If you go to a restaurant, you could buy the same glass of beer. In a supermarket, it's much cheaper, but if you buy it in a restaurant, you're paying for the same beer, but you're paying much more because it's part of an experience. And finally, their 5th point, which they said is still some years into the future, we're now beginning to see that in the 2020s, is the transformation economy, where the primary economic kind of power is in transformations. And we're seeing people don't just go somewhere to have an experience, they go somewhere to change. They go on a yoga retreat, not just to relax, but to come home changed. They go and learn how to kite surf, or they go and learn how to paint or how to use Excel. But paying for transformation is their kind of 5th step of that 5-step model. And they say we're beginning to move into that now. That was the lightning version.
Excellent. Thank you. And I'm going to push, okay, but what? Like, so I'm a tour operator. I provide experiences. You've just told me what I already do. What do I do with this information other than knowing that I'm in this part of the economy that is really important now, the experiences economy, and I could look towards transformation. But with my food tour in Barcelona, I'm not going to really transform too many lives, right? So
but you are.
No,
okay, so now what? Give me the now what.
Yes, so the now what is that you do food tours in Barcelona, and they are right now, you're selling an experience. Come to Barcelona, come go on a food tour, and you will have an experience. You will have memories, it will be beautiful. And the point of this is that if you say, come to Barcelona and be transformed as you come back, not only will you have an experience, but it will change you as a person. You will learn about something, or you will rediscover your passion for food, or you will change the way you look at yourself as a partner, or you will change the way you look at your business or your life or your kids. Then suddenly the price tag goes up and the economic value goes up.
Yeah, I'm having, Lori, I'm going to kick over to you. I'm having trouble seeing how a food tour company in Barcelona, we'll pick on that food tour company in Barcelona, can get from their experience to transformational. And that I didn't know that we were actually going there right now. I'm still wondering about why knowing I'm part of the experience economy, how that benefits me as a business.
I think it really, I don't think it has to be a massive transformation, Bruce. I think that it could transform you because maybe you've never done a group tour experience, and now you're experiencing this learning of something new in a community, and that somehow has elevated the way you just enjoy the whole thing. It could be that maybe you're tasting a new kind of food that you haven't tasted. That in and of itself is a transformation. It doesn't have to be this transformation. I think the transformation comes in little stages. And it's interesting because, you know, we have the experience economy. Okay, cool. Then we have COVID. And boom, there's this crater, right? And now everybody's like, man, I just want to be changed. I want to experience life. I'm going to take this life and take a bite out of it, and I'm going to make the most of it. So now you have this great opportunity to move into transformation, whether it's transformational travel that existed before, 1,000%. You know, immersive experiences, we talk about that stuff all the time. I think it's all transformational. It's just that now we are putting a name to it, and maybe that helps us to think about it a little bit more. So when we're designing an experience, we make a point of ensuring that there's some level of transformation available to people. So it isn't just okay, here's this, go look at it and move along. You know, I mean, that's kind of my takeaway from it. I don't know, Klaus, that would be interesting to hear from you on that.
So I'll give you 3 simple examples, Bruce, because I like the pushback. I like that. I think that's good. Sharpens our arguments. One, if you're
that's good. Then we'll get along.
You get to be contrarian. That's good. If you're selling a service, then what I'm interested in as a buyer is how much time or effort will it save me? Time saved is a key thing in services. Right? What time or energy will I not have to spend myself if you're selling to me? Doesn't matter what service you're selling, you're making my life better or easier somehow. If you're selling an experience, then it's not about saving me time, then it's about time well spent. So if I'm going to you and you're saying, hey, Klaus, I'll mow your lawn for $100, and I'm thinking, great, that's more than I could go out and do my well-paid job. So I'm saving time because you're providing a service. If you're saying, Klaus, let me take you on a fishing trip, I'm not saying, whoa, can I get it cheaper if we only go half a day? Because I want to spend the time well. And as long as you're delivering time well spent, then I'm happy. If we're talking about transformation, then we're talking about time well invested. I don't care about, is it a 3-week course or is it a 6-month course? I care about the outcome. If you go and tell me, Klaus, I want to take you to a football match, I'm not going to ask for it to be as short as possible, right? I'm going to want to have an experience that kind of fits the length of the football match. If you say, I want to teach you how to throw a football, then I'm going to be interested in what will it take to actually teach me to throw that football? What does that training look like? So there's a very big difference between delivering a service where you want it to be fast and over with and painless and quick, delivering an experience where you want it to be magnificent use of your time, or delivering a transformation where you are looking at who are you when it's over. And knowing what industry you're in is pretty important. Now, all of this is, of course, just quoting Pine and Gilmore from '98, but at least this is the updated version of it.
Well, updated, and it's got to be relevant for our audience.
Yes.
You know, there's lots of people who read the book and follow the model, and there's all kinds of different experiences. And, you know, whether it's just experiences of any kind, like we never talk about restaurants, for example. I'm still a little stuck on the whole transformational part and what it really takes to get to that. You did put out a nice definition, like don't, spend enough time to show me something new and different. And I think that's another conversation for another day. I have a feeling you might be on stage at Arrival Berlin talking about this a little bit. So that could be super cool. Start thinking about that now. We're getting pretty close to time. Lori, do you have any other thoughts you want to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to mention something that's completely unrelated to what we've been talking about. But as I was kind of enjoying doing some research on Klaus and on the College of Extraordinary Experiences, I came across Klaus's 100 innovation keynotes in 100 days. You can find it on YouTube, and it is absolutely gold. I love it. First of all, I have to listen to all of them. I think I managed to get through about 15 or 20, and I I thought it was really, really great. Really, really great. What my question is what has been the most popular one?
Of the 100 keynotes. So short context, a friend a couple of years back during the pandemic said, Klaus, if you want to do more speaking, why don't you just speak more? And I said, you mean just set up the camera and talk? And he said, yeah. He said, damn, I have no excuses. So then I made the stupid idea of doing 100 keynotes in 100 days, which I did. And there are now 100 of them. And what is the most popular one? I think the one I've gotten the most fun responses to is the one where I talk about, is one of the last ones, number 99, where I talk about that, what can I use these 100 for? That they have use even without being used. Even if nobody watches them, what value is there in having done 100 keynotes? And it could just as well be 100 podcast episodes or a book or a tour, or what is there of use in having a content package if nobody consumes that package? And that to me was one of the ones I got some interesting feedback on, when people said, oh, so if I'm an author, even if nobody reads the book, here's how I can use it. If I have a podcast, even if nobody listens, here's how I can use it. So that's at least one of those that I remember that got a lot of interesting audience feedback.
Lori, that,
All right. Awesome.
You know what I hear from that, Lori? I need to see that, and we need to figure that out for Experience.This.
Bruce, I knew your ears were perking up as soon as you said that.
We spend a lot of time putting these shows together. We get a lot of really good feedback, and there's just not enough people watching and listening. And that's because none of us have time to figure out how to distribute and market it appropriately, because it's just not our priority. We just have fun doing this and meeting awesome people like Klaus.
Maybe that's it then, Bruce, right? Fun doing it, meeting awesome people, right?
I think that's enough for now, but more people should be able to hear this, so we'll try to do what we can to spread the word. Klaus, super pleasure. I've really enjoyed meeting you over the last few months, and we'll keep it going, and hopefully meet you in person in Berlin at Arrival Berlin, and we will see you there. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay.
Thanks for the talk, both of you.
All right.
Bye, everyone.